So then guys, today I have two HP laptops that I want to compare to a M4 MacBook Pro. Now the main reason why I want to compare these two laptops to an M4 MacBook Pro is because at the end of the day, these are actually costing less than one of those devices, but obviously they cost a little bit more than a MacBook Air. But I want to see what HP's offerings can give us in 2025. And let's have a look at both these models that we've got right here, starting with this one right here. This here is the HP Spectre X360. It's a 2-in-1 laptop, so you can actually use this as a tablet too. And we do have a great Intel chipset inside of this. We actually have the Ultra chipset inside of this, what's really good. And HP have actually said with this device that we can get up to 19.5 hours battery life with it. What is best than what you can get with, say, an M4 MacBook Air, but obviously, like I said, it's just underneath, say, what you get with a MacBook Pro with an M4 chip inside of it. But overall, the actual body and everything like this is really good. We actually have a good number of ports, and I actually really love the design of this laptop. And one thing I think that stands out the most compared to, say, a mini LED display from Apple and also their standard Retina display is this OLED display that we've got right here. It's absolutely gorgeous. It goes up to 120 Hertz and it is amazing in its colors and vibrancies. I absolutely love it. It's also not that heavy to hold. It actually feels, just as heavy, probably say, as a MacBook Air, kind of in its weight. And yeah, I think it's really good. It's got a nice large trackpad, really good sort of a keyboard here, some great speakers here, Poly Studio speakers and everything like that. And overall, I think it's a great laptop alternative out there running Windows right now compared to, say, a MacBook Air. That's what I would kind of judge this towards more of. But then we also have this device right here, and this here is a HP Omen Transcend 14-inch laptop. Now, technically, this is a gaming laptop, but it is super lightweight and it's really cool too. It's got a good number of ports all over it, what I absolutely love, including the power. It's right in the back middle where you can connect it to. It's out the way when you want to game, things like this. And inside of this, we've also got an Intel chip inside. We've got an Ultra 7, and we've also got an RTX 4060 inside of this too. And yeah, we've also got this gorgeous OLED display, again very similar to the Spectre, what's really cool, what I absolutely love. And then obviously you've got this Transcend. This is what it is, the keyboard here with the multi-different colors and everything like that, what's absolutely amazing. And like I said, the prices of these are really reasonable for what you're getting. You're getting something here what's nice and strong and solid and a bit more lightweight than compared to the HP. The build qualities are still great quality, but you can tell that obviously the Spectre's got a little bit more love inside of it. But you're mainly paying for, say, the likes of the RTX graphics card inside of it. So I think the best thing we can do now is actually compare this to an M4 chip. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to compare it to the MacBook Air because the price is a little bit more closer to that. So let's have a look. And first of all, I want to show you is the disk speeds. What kind of differences are we getting right here? Well, we can see that the MacBook Air M4, 256 gigabytes, we get sort of a read speeds of 2,836 compared to 1,956. But you can see here that the Spectre X360 with its 1 terabyte and the Omen Transcend, they are definitely faster here. They're getting very similar speeds of just over 3,600 in their read speeds. And then the same thing as well with the actual write speeds. We're kind of getting 3,350, just over that, mid speeds on that. Very similar kind of hard drives inside of it, SSDs or NVMEs, whatever you want to call them, inside of these. But definitely for storage speeds and things like this, these definitely are ahead here. But let's have a look then into CPU then. Let's see what kind of speeds we are getting here next of all. Well, the MacBook Air with its 10 core inside of it, well, that actually gets a Geekbench score of 3,987. And their multi-core performance, well, we get 14,786. Now, both these laptops, these HP ones here, actually have the same chip inside them, what is the i7 Ultra. This is the first edition, as it were. And we can see the score that we've got right here. For single-core performance, we're getting 2,312, and then we're getting 12,802. And then you can see here that the Transcend, well, yes, very similar kind of scores that we're getting there. But obviously, that is definitely behind, though, compared to the MacBook Air with the M4 inside of it. And yet this has a 16 core setup inside of it. And then just in case you want to know what that means in Cinebench, well, we've got the scores right here, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but you can see the actual differences here. That obviously the likes of the MacBook Air, that is definitely out in front in single core performance. But weirdly enough, though, with the 7 Ultra, obviously this is Cinebench, it works a bit differently here. That obviously the score is actually slightly out ahead than the MacBook Air here, but obviously the Omen Transcend, again, very similar kind of score to the Spectre X360 because it has the exact same chip inside of it. But then after this let's talk about actual graphics scores, and especially this is where the Transcend laptop is going to really launch out in front here, I think, because obviously it's got that dedicated graphics of that RTX 4060 where we have unified sort of memory inside of the M4, the Ultra i7, that's obviously using the RAM, what's actually allocated to the inside the system, a bit more of an old school way, or the traditional way of doing it. So let's have a look then. And first of all, we did a Geekbench 6 OpenCL score test, and let's have a look at the scores right here. And we can see that the MacBook Air M4 got 37,005, whereas the Spectre 360 obviously still got a really good score, 34,212, so it's just behind there. But obviously that Omen Transcend with the RTX 4060 is way out in front here at over 89,000. And then after this, I decided to power up 3D Mark, and first of all, I decided to do Wildlife Extreme, and let's have a look at the score that we got right here. We can see that the MacBook Air, that M4, the 10-core GPU version here, 9,025. The Spectre X360 got 7,141, so yeah, that is less. But yeah, just look at that then. The Omen Transcend's RTX 4060, double the amount what we get with the MacBook Air with the M4. Having that dedicated graphics is really helping out. And with this, whilst I was still in 3D Mark, I decided to run the likes of still Nomad Lite. And let's have a look then at the frames per second that we got with this then. Well, we can see the MacBook Air only could get 29 frames per second. The Spectre X360 did a good job, only got 19. No, it's definitely behind here. But obviously that Omen Transcend RTX 4060, 53 frames per second was absolutely incredible here. Now, we'll do games in just a moment because obviously I think that's where the 4060 is definitely going to shine again. But you probably want to know, what was if you were going to do some editing on this? Let's say you decide to do DaVinci Resolve. Let's say we did some video editing. So what I've decided to do is I've actually decided to load a 10-minute video into DaVinci Resolve on all 3 of these devices, and then what I did was I actually slowed it down to 25% speed and counted how long that rendering took. And let's have a look at the results right here. We can see that the MacBook Air with the 10 core, well, that took 119 seconds to convert this 10-minute, 10-bit HEVC video to 25% speed, whereas the Spectre X360 with the 7 Ultra, that took 142 seconds, and then the Omen Transcend RTX 4060 took 112 seconds. Now, one of the big reasons why the M4 did such a good job of this is because it's got the media decoder and decoder dedicated to do these kind of tasks. That really helps out, whereas the other 2 laptops don't have that. Obviously the Transcend one here will help with that RTX. You can use the graphics card to do that job for you, but we have it dedicated here with the M4, and obviously the likes of DaVinci Resolve and loads of other softwares out there are compatible with using that. But let's have a look then to see what it took to export the file, but at the 10-minute original speed. Let's have a look right here. Well, we can see that the MacBook Air took 132 seconds to export this. The Ultra 7 in that X360, the Spectre, that took 163 seconds. And then obviously the RTX 4060 in the Omen took 124 seconds to export this same file. And that's quite impressive what you're getting here with the RTX 4060. It's definitely a really impressive device. So obviously, like I said, it's only just costing a little bit more than a MacBook Air out there for this. And obviously, if you spec up a MacBook Air to, have the likes of, say, a bit more storage and things like this, a bit more RAM, obviously still this would be out in front there. What is quite impressive, especially that it has the big amount of storage and things like this inside of it too. And we have the, the OLED display and so on and so forth. You get the idea. This is quite an impressive device that we have here. But something else where I think this device is going to really shine out is definitely going to be in gaming performance. So I've decided to run a number of games, and the first game I decided to test out was Cyberpunk 2077, doing the benchmark test. And obviously this is running at ultra mode with no ray tracing or upscaling or anything like this, and this is the average frames per second that we got out of all 3 devices. Now, what I will say is, what you can see in this chart, we do have the MacBook Air. Now, we are using crossover for this, so it's not fully compatible yet with macOS, but Cyberpunk is definitely coming out to be native on MacBook or macOS in the future. But let's have a look at what we got then. So you can see we only got 24 frames per second here with that 10-core GPU. The Spectre, the X366, we only got 23 frames per second, just behind there. But obviously that's native for Windows, what this is running on. But the HP Transcend RTX 4060, well, that was way out in front. Double of what we got with the others, 56 frames per second here, was absolutely incredible. Now, do remember that you can obviously turn on things like FSR with AMD and things like this, and obviously Intel have their own one now, the XE one, you know, for ARC and things like this, that you can do all those bits and pieces, and then obviously with the RTX, you've also got DLS and things like that. What's really going to help out, we could even push up those frames per second even more, but I just wanted to do a test on raw performance, what we got there. But yeah, you could probably even push out, you know, Cyberpunk on those same settings. You put DLS and everything like that on it, you could probably get to around about 100 frames per second there. Was really, really impressive. But moving on then from this end, what about, say, Shadow of the Tomb Raider? This is the next test that I've decided to run on here. Now, the great thing is that on the MacBook Air, this actually is native for this, but it was actually physically designed for the Intel version, so we are using Rosetta 2. But let's have a look then at the scores that we got. Well, we can see with the MacBook Air, we were getting 37 frames per second on high here at 1080p. The Spectre X360, well, you know, with Intel Arc Xe, it got 38 frames per second, so one more. And then obviously the HP Transcend RTX 4060, where it actually gave us 97 frames per second, what is really, really impressive to see. And then the last game I decided to run on it was Resident Evil 4, because obviously that has been built for macOS now, and obviously it works with, say, Apple Silicon as well from the ground up. That's how it's been built, and obviously it's compatible with Windows and things like that. So let's have a look then what we got right here. Well, we can see that the MacBook Air gave us 46 frames per second, whereas the Spectre X360 just behind at 43 frames per second, but obviously the HP Transcend, yeah, the RTX 4060, way out in front here, 126 frames per second. But obviously remember, no ray tracing, no upscaling, no nothing, just raw performance here. What's incredible. Now, so with that, we can see these devices are really, really great in here. Now, obviously, I know I'm going to say the Spectre is not the fastest device out there, obviously compared to, say, the MacBook Air. But remember, you are getting that OLED display. It's a fantastic display. You're getting all those ports, everything like this. It is still a great laptop, and obviously the HP, you know, the Omen here, this is definitely a great device too, especially, you know, if you want to do graphics and gaming. This is going to be incredible here. And I'm going to see the battery life in a minute, because that is quite incredible too. But you probably want to know about heats and thermals. So I ran Cinebench 2024 and I measured the temperature about 5 minutes into their 10-minute test. And this is what the average kind of heats that I actually got from these devices. So the MacBook Air M4, what you've got to remember that it does have no fan inside of it. It was going up to 48 degrees measured on the outside, of what's obviously about 118 degrees Fahrenheit here. And then obviously the HP Spectre, that got 35 degrees Celsius, 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the HP Transcend RTX 4060 got 42 degrees Celsius, and then obviously that got up to 107 degrees Fahrenheit. What is quite impressive that you've obviously got the RTX 4060 in here, and this is the thing that was spinning around with this test, and it actually managed to keep so cool inside of that. Now, one thing I would say is obviously those fans were whirring, whereas the MacBook Air, you wouldn't hear anything. So that is just one thing to consider there. But then the big thing that you guys want to know is, what about battery life? How good has that been on all three of these devices? Well, let's take a look right here. Well, after doing all these tests, and remember we started at 100% at this, with everything completed, the MacBook Air 13-inch M4, well, it had 56% battery left after this. Whereas the Spectre 360, obviously, you know, it's not as powerful, but it actually had 63% battery left, what was really, really impressive to see in here. But personally, my favorite one is got to be that Omen, that Transcend RTX 4060. Remember, this is the dedicated graphics in here, 53% left, what is incredible when you think about the performance that we've been seeing here today compared to, say, the MacBook Air, especially in gaming and doing things like DaVinci Resolve. This is super, super impressive. So in my opinion here, as much as people go say Apple are the best at everything, well, not always, at the end of the day, if you do look at the cost and what you're getting here and some of the things that you sacrifice, these are definitely great options. Like I said, this HP Spectre, the battery life is amazing with this, and you've got this OLED display, and obviously it's got a fantastic build quality. I'd even say the build quality is slightly better than the likes of a MacBook Air with this. And then you also have the HP Omen here, the Transcend, and obviously the build quality is probably a little bit less than what you'd get with the Spectre, probably slightly less than what you get with a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro. But I think what's really impressive, you get that OLED display, you get that RTX graphics card inside of it, you get all of those performance gains, and yet battery life is just slightly under what we got with the MacBook Air. And that's absolutely incredible, especially the device was actually still quite light and everything. This is definitely one of my favorite gaming laptops out there, this Transcend 14-inch. And if you want to check out either of these devices, well, I'm going to leave links in the description below for both of them because I think they're absolutely incredible. But what are your opinions on these? Do you like these HP laptops, or do you prefer something from Apple? Well, let me know in the comments below. And with that as well, guys, it's time to wrap up this video too. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button. And as always, if you want to hear the latest technology news, reviews and comparisons, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also hit that notification bell too. Until next time, guys, I'll see you really soon. Take care. Bye bye.